Hello and what's up everyone, my name is Saib and welcome to episode 15. In this episode we're going to talk about the mouse and the mouse events that we can actually use. And since the mouse is very important in games, even if not in the gameplay, it's going to be useful for the menus or for clicking the buttons or to pause the game or even to continue the game, playing the game. So I thought this should be just a separate episode, just all about the mouse and how we can deal with the mouse in our canvas. So let's start by talking about JavaScript events. Now, since this is not specific to canvas, JavaScript events are useful if we want to handle events using the add_listen handler or listener that we've talked about in the images episode, that listens to an event and then implement or execute a function once that event is overheard. So let's actually call the canvas and add an event listener to our canvas. Now I want the event to be related to the mouse, so I'm going to use a mouse move event, which is a mouse event. Okay, now when I move my mouse in our canvas area, in which is this event is going to be overheard, and then a function here, the second function, which is the event handler, is going to be executed or implemented. Okay, so I want this function to be I want to call it mouse movement, for instance, mouse movement. Okay, now I have this mouse movement function that's going to be implemented when this mouse move event is overheard, or simply when I move my mouse in our canvas area, that one. Okay, so let's come up with a definition for the mouse movement. Just copy that one. Okay, now in our mouse movement I'm going to pass something that is actually important in our in this episode, in which is an event argument, or this event argument is simply a mouse event object that will give us access to a lot of properties that we're going to use, such as the mouse's position, or if any of the mouse buttons are clicked. We're going to see how exactly we're going to do that in here today. Okay, so I'm going to console log the mouse's position now, simply by calling the event argument and calling one of the properties. Let's say that I want to call screen X. Let's give it a space between the X and Y positions, so screen Y. Okay, the screen X and Y are going to give us, or it's going to console log the mouse's X and Y positions that's relative to our monitor, not the browser's one, to our whole monitor that we're going to actually use. So from the top left of our monitor to where this mouse is. So simply if I inspect it and go to console, we're going to see, okay, so get that one. We're going to see how we're going to get thousands for the X and Y, since I'm getting the, okay, if I go down, it's going to increase for the Y. See, once the mouse move is outside of our canvas area, this event won't be heard, and then this function won't get executed, so we won't see any console log in our console here. So yeah, as I said, screen X gives us the positions of X and Y that's relative to our monitor, the top left of our monitor. So yeah, if I want to get the relative position from the top left of our browser's viewport, I'm going to use the client X and Y. So I'm going to use client X and client Y, and I save again, and now we're going to see that we're getting lesser values, since I'm getting the mouse's positions that's relative to the browser's viewport, in which is the top left is that one, and we're going to get the mouse's X and Y coordinates. So yeah, okay, this is about getting the position. We're going to go over into how exactly we can find the exact mouse position, since this is not the exact one. This is relative to the browser's top left, so it's not the exact mouse's position that goes from 0 up until 500 for the X and Y, so not the exact mouse's position in our canvas. So yeah, okay, let's talk about the mouse clicks, and if I click or press the left click on the mouse or the right one. So for that I'm going to use the mouse down event, which means that if I press some of the buttons, either the left one or the right, or the wheel, in which is the center one. So I'm just going to call I'm going to say button pressed like that. Okay, so now let's say I want to come up with a definition for the button pressed, that one. Of course we're going to pass the event argument. Now let's make an if statement to see, or to just console log if I clicked with the left one or the right one or the wheel, which is the center mouse button. So simply if I said if e dot button, now we're going to equal that e dot button with 3 values, either the 0 or 1 or 2. 0 is for the left, 1 is for the wheel or the center button of our mouse, and 1 and 2 is the right one. So if I said 0 in here, I'm going to console log, I'm going to say left mouse button is clicked or pressed, that one. Okay, let's make another else if e dot button, we're going to equal that with 1. That means the wheel is actually clicked, so I'm going to say wheel, or simply aka center. Let's put that into brackets. I don't know why I'm actually doing this, but okay, mouse button is clicked. Okay, and last case is for the right one, so I say else if, try to actually copy and paste that one for the video's time. So okay, 2, and then console log that one, and it's gonna be the right mouse button is clicked. I'm gonna save. Now I'm gonna inspect before clicking on anything, so that way. Okay, now you see when I clicked on the inspect, I clicked on the right mouse, so that got actually overheard, and actually it implemented the last condition, which is the right mouse. So if I clicked on the left one, we're gonna see the left one mouse button is clicked. If I clicked on the wheel, which is the center one, I got clicked one, right again, left, and right. So you see how this is actually going. So okay, that's related to the mouse's buttons. Okay, so now let's try to make a simple app, or simply a drawing app that follows, or just draw with, we're gonna draw a circle and then move that circle with the x's mouse's position, the x and y, so that we move our circle and have like this brush thing or anything. It's like a drawing in a canvas. And simply I can show you an alter thing to do, and just to move it without actually drawing. So let's remove that one. First thing we're gonna do is a function that draws a circle. So simply I can just say draw circle, that one. We're gonna begin the path same as every episode, so that we have this shape with its own properties and its own line width, its own fill style, its own stroke style. So yeah, now I'm gonna call the arc method, and let's say I want this to be 150 and 150 for the x and y positions. I want this to be static now until I set the exact mouse coordinates, and then I'm gonna pass it into the arc method, so that the circle actually draws according to my mouse's x and y. Okay, so I want a radius of 40. Let's say 40 is nice, and then a full circle, so from 0 to 2 math pi, since the angles should be in radians. And then it doesn't matter in the case of full circle if it's an anti-clockwise or clockwise. And then I'm just gonna add a fill style for that one. Say that I want this to be orange. You can choose whatever you like. Then I'm just gonna call fill. Okay, everything is fine. We haven't called the function yet, so we're not seeing the circle. So now if I just call the function, we're gonna see our circle in our canvas that way. Okay, so now let's try to get the mouse's x and y positions. So simply I can just introduce 2 new variables, the mouse's x, give it a value of 0, and let's give it a mouse y for the y coordinates for the mouse of the mouse. So yeah, so now let's add an event listener, which is mouse move, since I'm moving my mouse or drawing in our canvas, that one. Then I'm gonna get the mouse's position. Okay, that way. Now let's come up with a definition. It's gonna be get mouse position. I'm gonna add an event argument to use the client x and y. So I'm just gonna go with mouse's x equals client x. Mouse's y, it's gonna be the event argument, which is an object of the mouse event, as I said, that allows us to use the properties such as client x or screen x if I'm doing things that's relative to the monitor. I don't know. So yeah, Okay, now this is not, as I said, this is not the exact coordinates of the x and y, since this client x gives us the mouse's position that's relative to the browser's top view, top left, sorry, the browser's viewport, in which is the top left is that one, is where I'm pointing now. So yeah, it's not the exact x and y coordinates for the mouse. So how we can do this is we can use we can do some calculations in order to get it, and this may seem complex or advanced since it requires an advanced JavaScript in order to actually understand everything. So if you didn't understand how the next function that I'm going to talk about now is working, it's totally fine. You can use it, or without actually understanding it, it just gets the exact mouse's position. And if you want to understand it, I'm going to leave a reference for a good JavaScript book that you can actually refer to, because even if you want to make like a good or a fun interactive games, you have to be you have to know more than the basics of JavaScript, and you should just know the advanced techniques in order to do most of the cool things. So maybe after this series you might want to work with the JavaScript even more than a basic level, or just go advanced with that. So okay, enough talking, let's talk about the get position, the exact one. So I'm just going to say function get exact position, and I'm going to pass an element in here, that one, which is the event argument for that one. Okay, so this function you can leave it at the bottom of that one, since this is just a helper function. It's not relative to our application, or it gets the mouse's exact position, but it's a helper function. Okay, so what we're going to do here is introduce two new variables for the x and y. So I'm going to say position x. I'm going to give that, initialize that. I'm going to give this a 0 also. Okay, now we're going to make a while our event argument, that one. So it's definitely going to be implemented. Okay, so now I'm going to make two conditions. One for the body elements and one for a non-body elements in our HTML. So let's say I'm just going to say if element.tag name, and I'm going to get the body one. The tag name should be in capital, or should be capitalized or uppercased. So yeah, in order to actually use it. Okay, then I'm going to introduce the variables, two variables, the scroll x and y, for the page scroll or the body page scroll, or the window or the document one. So simply I'm just going to call scroll x, and then I'm going to use the element, and I'm going to access one of its properties, in which is the scroll left. This returns the pixels of, or just the scroll from the left in pixels. So yeah, and then or simply I can use logical or and get that value using the DOM document element, that one, and I'm gonna get the scroll left. It's another way of actually doing it. So same goes for scroll y. I'm just gonna get element dot, and I'm gonna get the scroll. Now in our case the y is the top, so yeah. So this exactly returns the scroll in pixels that's relative to the top, so yeah, or from the top, so yeah. Now document element, and I'm just gonna go scroll and top, like that. Okay, now we're gonna update the positions x and y according to the scroll one. So simply I'm just gonna add a value of the I'm gonna just increase the positions x and y with this. First thing we're gonna do is the offset left, since we're talking about the x position. So this offset left simply returns the offset of our element from the left side. So yeah, I'm gonna leave a reference to most of the new methods or properties that I use in this video in order to actually know more about it, since this is not a JavaScript episode, it's a Canvas one. But knowing JavaScript is actually an advantage to this series. So yeah, you definitely should read the book that I'm going to leave in the reference in order to actually be better at JavaScript, and be just more than basic knowledge. So yeah, now I'm just gonna minus that with the scroll x, and then I'm gonna add it. So I'm gonna minus the offset left with these two values, in which is the scroll x and the element client left. client left, that one, like that. The same goes for the position Y, in which is we're gonna do everything but for the top one. I hope that makes sense, because this is actually important to get the exact mouse's position. So yeah, and we're gonna get the client top for the event argument, or the element in here. So yeah, okay, now I'm gonna make an else condition. As I said, it's exactly the same, but this is for the body elements and this is for the none. So I can just say position X, and I can add that and get the offset left. In our case, we don't have a scroll in here, so simply we can replace that with scroll left from the element, that one, like that, and then the client left. Same goes for the Y position, but for the top now. Top, and scroll top, that one. Okay. And lastly, I'm just gonna give this element an element offset parent. Offset parent, like that. This offset parent returns a reference to that element, and that reference is the closest ancestor element for our element that we're gonna pass in here, in which is the canvas. And if it doesn't have any ancestor elements, the body will be referred to. The body will be the reference. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. And now we're gonna return an object which has the X and Y for our positions. So the X is gonna be position X in our case, that we updated with the scroll and for the body elements, and for the none it's just gonna be the client left and scroll left added together, and then we'll minus it with the left offset of our element, that one. So yeah, position X and Y for the Y, and that is simply all of the implementation, or the full implementation for get exact position. Now we can create we can do it in here or under the mouse's X and Y, it's fine. So it's gonna be the canvas exact position, and we're gonna get exact position, and we're gonna pass in our canvas. Now we're gonna save, and now that we got the exact position of our canvas, we're gonna minus it. We're gonna minus the client X, in which is the mouse position that's relative to the Windows viewport, the top left of our Windows viewport, and I'm gonna minus it with the canvas position dot X, since we returned an object that has an X and Y. So yeah, and the other thing is gonna be, okay, wait, it's supposed to be client X, that one, and then we're gonna minus the client Y with the Y for the exact canvas position. Now we can pass the mouse's X and Y for in the arc method, that one, like that, and that way, so we can have our little now we need to call the request animation in order to, let me just, that one, in order to have our animation loop, since a lot of frames are going to be drawn in here, going to be updated. So okay, now if I move my mouse, the get mouse position is going to get the exact mouse's X and Y that we actually implemented with the get exact position, and it's going to return that to the arc method, and the arc method is going to use that position in order to actually draw a circle that way. Now why this is actually happening, since we're using request animation frame, we're supposed to have a moving circle, but because we didn't clear, if you remember in the previous episode we've talked about, in the animation episode we've talked about the clear rect, and in order to make some animations we have to clear and draw our frame in order to not leave any trace from the previous frame. So now we're gonna have a lot of traces from the previous frames. So yeah, I'm just gonna build that, and then I'm gonna have, you see, even the previous frame is gonna, it's not gonna be cleared out. So yeah, okay, so let's try to actually call the clear rect in here to clear everything, and I'm gonna go from the canvas width and height, and the canvas dot height, like that. And now if I saved, you're gonna see that our circle moves, since there's no trace from the previous episode. Everything gets cleared out and drawn again in a 60 frames per second, which means that each frame takes 16.67 milliseconds. So yeah, moves. I know this is an advanced example. I don't want you to get overwhelmed with everything that we've done in here. You can use this get exact position function without understanding it, or I simply advise you to, but you have to be very knowledgeable or just have an advanced knowledge in JavaScript to understand most of the DOM elements or the event argument properties that we used in here. So yeah, and I don't want it to go into much detail since this is not a JavaScript series. It's just a Canvas one. Okay, so it's not gonna be as much complex as in games. This is actually an advanced one. So yeah, our games are gonna be much simpler. So you should by now know what a mouse events is and how to the difference between the client X and the screen X, and just try to do this example. I'll try to check up the references that I'm gonna leave in the description, and everything will be fine. So if I just change the color of that one to steel blue, I'm gonna get everything that's working just fine with a 60 frames per second like that, and it's all good. Okay, so yeah, I think that's everything about this episode. I hope you liked it. If you didn't, it's fine. Try to understand it again or everything. So if you understand it, anything, just that's good. If you didn't, please leave a comment or anything. Maybe I can reply to that. And I'll see you in the next episode.